All right. But yeah, I agree. Everyone has their own opinions on the show, but I think for me, they should at least give every season a try because to me, I feel like it's the whole first installment win situation where anything past the original is not good. For example, Pokemon, we obviously have the Gen Oneers who hate everything past Gen One. For me, I'm a Transformers fan, and I know a lot of people say anything past the first Michael Bay film is garbage, with the exception of Bumblebee.
Hmm.
I personally love my favorite Transformers movie is Revenge of the Fallen. Even though I do agree the twins were racist stereotypes.
Right. Right. Yeah. No. Look, it's funny as fans of shows, right?
Mhm.
Uh, I think there's always you always have a special place in your heart for the first one, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's the first in a series of movies, if it's the first season of a show, because that's when you more often than not fall in love with a show, right? You know,
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot of people that tell you, oh man, like I'm trying to think of like a current show, like even like, oh man, like I love Stranger Things. Oh yeah, yeah, man, I really got into it season 3. Like it was the bomb. Like usually it's like, you know what, man, it's when you first meet the characters and when you first sort of get a feel for it, that's when you love something. Look, I can think back to even, I mean, look, obviously I'm older than you, but I remember there was a science fiction series called Buck Rogers in the 25th Century.
Hmm.
And I love that show. And the first season was the bomb. Like it was amazing. It was like had everything I wanted, right? It was starfighters and it was marauders and it was excellent. And then I remember the second season, they sort of changed it to like this weird Star Trek vibe, and they were going out into space to go, search out new life. And I'm like, no, man, that's not Buck Rogers. That's not what I want. Now the truth is maybe if I watched it again, I'd be like, okay, second season wasn't so bad. But you always love is that first one, right? Like you get into that first one and you're like, oh man, like that's my jam right there. So, be patient with your friends. I get it. You can just love something and you're like, that's what I want and stuff. So it's a thing. I found that with Metabots. I remember that was one of the first animes that or actually that was the first anime that I voiced. When I started my career, I did a show for HBO called Crashbox. Then I did Rescue Heroes, which ended up on CBS and aired here as well. I
I
got to play
remember Rescue
Rocky.
Heroes. I was a kid. When I was a kid, I used to love that show. You voiced Rocky, right?
Yep, Rocky Canyon. Billy, it's an avalanche. We got to get out of here. So that was the jam. We did like 4 seasons of that, which was amazing. And then the first anime that I did and I dubbed was Metabots,
Hmm.
and I got to play Metabee on that show. And there was like 3 seasons of that. But whenever I went out, if I talked to fans, it's that first season that everybody loves. Jason, they love it.
I haven't seen Metabots. I definitely got to put that on my list. I know. When I interviewed Jerry Chalk, he gave me
That's the
some.
one because that's when Metabee. Sorry, say that last part again. You just cut out when you interviewed Jerry.
No, Gary Chalk.
Okay, right.
Yeah. When I interviewed Gary Chalk, he gave me a bunch of like local news stations here in Montreal that he worked for and some shows he worked on, and I still haven't had time to check it out because um lately I started working full time just for this semester, and then um I just transitioned into a new job because I left my old job because of a toxic work environment, and whenever free time I have, kind of dedicated to just take some time to relax because it is a physically demanding job.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, look, between work and then like I'm sure with school, like school keeps you busy. So yeah, look, you got to you find the time, right? You just got,
Yep.
not everyone's got that. I got friends that tell me, Joe, you got to binge watch this show. And I'm like, I don't got time to binge watch. I got to work, man. I got stuff to do. I got to take care of the house. I got things. So it's all right. Don't even worry about that. That's good stuff.
Mhm. All right. So I'm gonna ask you some questions. So my first question is the first section is about Master Ingram. So how did you get cast as the voice of Master Ingram? Because I know the character was originally voiced by Stacey Depas. I don't know how to pronounce
Yep, to
her last
pass.
name.
That's right, to pass.
Depas, during
Mhm.
the first half of New Destroyer, and then before Evolution. And yes, while we've had voice actresses often voicing male characters, such as the case with Timmy Turner or Kid Goten being one of my all-time favorite Dragon Ball characters, they made their voice sound male, you know. But I feel like that wasn't the case with Ingram, aside from like a small flub during episode, I think it was 25 or 26 of New Destroyer when they were freeing the original six fighting Bakugan, and it was Scott McCord who briefly provided one of the lines for the character. And I am aware that Ingram was originally supposed to be male in the Japanese version, but New Destroyer was dubbed in English before getting a Japanese release because of how Battle Bros was a failure in Japan. So, like, to me, what happened was Ingram kind of got a free gender swap when she got Oberis's Ventus energy.
Right. Yeah. No, look, first of all, Stacey is an amazing actress. She does like tons of series, and she's so good at what she does and everything, right? And Scott McCord he's great as well. He's actually in New York right now. I believe he's doing some theater there and getting some working on some new projects. I think he's got a new Netflix show, if I'm not mistaken. So talented people. What happens a lot of times, like with casting, is look, it's entirely possible. I'm trying to think back because that would have been at least maybe like 10 years ago or so. But like, there's a possibility that Stacey could have been like busy with another series and maybe couldn't have been freed up to actually do the show. So it might not have been a creative decision necessarily, as it was just one of being a practicality, right? Now with the producers on Bakugan, they because Nelvana produces the show, here for North America, and they've had a relationship with me dating way back to Rescue Heroes, right? So that's like 2000. So they know me, they trust me. So if they need someone to come in and do something, then they'll give me a call and say, listen, Joe, we got a character. We just wonder if you can do this episode, if you can do a couple of episodes. And I'm like, yeah, man, no problem. So I think with Master Ingram, like I think if I'm remembering correctly, wasn't Master I think he was Ingram, and then he sort of had a transformation, I think, into Master Ingram.
Yeah, it was because King Zenoheld saw the attribute energies from the six legendary warriors of Vestroya, and they were able to transfer those energies into the six partner Bakugan: Drago, Elfin, Percival, Wilda, Ingram, and Nemesis.
All right. So you see, so I think what they wanted was just to give him, now with that change, a different energy and a different vibe. So, I think they just decided, hey, we're going to switch it up from Stacey and just give it a different thing. And Stacey's super talented. But there's probably like maybe a bass in her voice or just something in her voice that maybe, I could give the character that, maybe she couldn't. So I think it was basically they wanted to show that character had evolved a bit. And, one way to do that creatively is to put a new actor in there. So, but they've always, in terms of casting, they've always sort of trusted me. That's why they brought me back, between, Battle Brawlers and New Vestroya and Invaders. They'll just, all right, let's hook Joe up with something. We'll get, let's give them something. So that's basically, in terms of the casting, they trust me enough to know I can give them what they need.
Yeah, because I remember when I was a kid, when I first heard Master Ingram, I'm like, wait a minute, that's not a woman voicing Ingram. It's a man. What the hell happened?
That's right. That's classic Mike Myers from It's a Man, baby. It's a man. It's like, what happened? Good ear, Jason. But yeah, that's what they'll do sometimes, right? They might decide that they just want to give that character a different energy or a different vibe. So you just cast a different performer that can just give you that sort of sudden difference, right?
Mm-hmm. What do you think caused Ingram's insecurity about his evolution? Because um, from what I remember from New Vestroya, and I recently rewatched New Vestroya, I think aside from a loss against Shadow Prove and Hades, Ingram hadn't lost a brawl up until his evolution. And if any of the Resistance partner back on should have self-doubt, it should have been Nemesis. Because you look at Baron's track record, and Nemesis is by far the weakest Bakugan on the show in terms of the partner Bakugan. And I'm not even going to count his win against Shadow Probe and Mylene, because really, I think it was episode 23, or I think it was an earlier episode, where they were able to destroy Beta City, because that was all Dan and Drago. Nemesis was there to take the hit for Drago, and then have Drago use his perfect core attribute energy or something.
I'd go with that. You know what? Like I like the look. It's always interesting to hear when viewers break down what it is that they thought happened and stuff, right? I think insecurity, like 100%, like that would go with the character, right? You're the boss, you're the boss, you're the boss, you're not the boss, and then what happens, right? Like how do you deal with things and everything? So yeah, I'd say that's that makes a lot of sense in terms of the character. Like I remember a little bit because it's been a long time since I've watched the series, but I remember like that was sort of a thing, because Master Ingram, there was a stretch there when I thought, oh man, like this guy's creme de la creme, right? So, yeah. But everyone falls, bro. Everyone falls. So yeah, 100%.
Okay, yeah, I completely agree, but I still felt it was kind of weird, but I get where they're coming from, and I know that Skyrus did not return as Shun's partner back because her voice actress Barbara Budd wanted to retire. So in a way they gave her a goodbye episode, and I feel like that was just Ingram not being able to live up to Skyrus and what she did for Shun.
Very cool. Yeah, I'd go with that for sure. Yeah, man. Good breakdown.
Yeah, and so when she passed the torch to Ingram, do you feel like she was passing did you think Barbara Budd was passing the torch to you, or do you think she was passing it to Stacy, because she was the one who verbally passed the torch to Stacy in episode 26, but then you were there for the goodbye episode?
I think that it would have been to Stacy, because I think that character, just the way it sort of broke down, Stacy took over after her. That's sort of the linear go of it, right? So I would say that for sure. I mean, I popped up, and I was, so fortunate to get to voice the character at the end, but I think it was more of that character just sort of, going to Stacy. So Stacy gets the Duke on that one.
I kind of wish, I feel like it was you, but since you got the goodbye episode, but I totally agree with that. So were you encouraged to maybe improvise Master Ingram's personality, or did you get like specific directions on how to voice him?
Direction was pretty usually with the dubbing, especially if you take over a character, you take direction and listen to what they've got to say, because maybe the character is already established, or maybe they have an idea of where they want the character to go, right? So with a character like Ingram, a little bit more of a badass, you're pretty straight ahead with the performance, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes when you're dubbing, you don't get as much opportunity to ad-lib as you do for original animation. Because when you throw in some ad-libs on original animation, if they like what you threw in, then they can animate that, right? Yep. And they're like, oh man, I love what Joe said there. we're gonna animate that. We'll throw that in, animate it. They can do that. With dubbing, a lot of times, you've only got a, say you've got a 4-second window to actually deliver the line, right? Yeah. And what they'll do in dubbing is, you'll have the video in front of you, and then you get the beeps. So, you have to say your line on the 4th beep. So it'll be beep, 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 beep. All right, it's time for us to move on. Let's go. And then and then they'll check and see, and okay, that's great. He got it in the next one. Let's go to the next one. So if I decide to ad lib, I've got to fit my ad lib into that 4-second space I have, right? So, if I decide, okay, we've done what we need to do, and I'm time to roll to the next one. Let's go. Beep. Nope. Sorry, Joe. You know what? That ad lib was too long. We've got to fit that into 4 seconds. So you've always got to fit it sort of into the time. So Ingram, I would have done like just what they told me to do. For a character that's a little bit more uncorked, like Aquamos.
Yes.
Aquamos is a lot more fun, right? He's a loosey-goosey guy. So like I remember for them, Cool's the Rule Dude. That was like the one thing they're like, all right, we got that Cool's the Rule Dude. Cool's the Rule Dude. So they're like, all right, Joe, get that for us. But if you find places where you can kind of have fun in the allotted time, then for sure, because he was just a lot more active, a lot more crazy. So from a performance standpoint, a character like Aquamos, yeah, you can let her rip and do some stuff, right? Ad lib wise. Ditto, even like the even when I got to like the play-by-play guy, when I was doing the play-by-play announcing.
The announcer, yeah, and wasn't it in Mectanium Surge?
You know what? I did some in Mectanium Surge, and then even more in Battle Planet, where I got to sit there and like, all right, Dan Kuzo has got a lot to deal with. Let's see what happens. So they would say to me, look, Joe, you know sports, you know what it's like when you're, saying what it's like to be in a stadium or competition or whatever. So if you want to throw in something that feels a little bit more play-by-play announcery, by all means do it, right?
Yeah.
So there's some characters where there's a lot more breadth. You get a lot more of an opportunity to ad lib. So like Ingram, no, not really. But guys like Aquamos or the play-by-play dude, 100%.
Cool as the Rule Dude.
Cool as the Rule Dude. Cool as the Rule Dude. Cool as the Rule Dude. So much fun. They were so excited about
Battle Planet. I watched a few episodes of Battle Planet and then I just stopped watching because I just couldn't get past watching a dog play Bakugan. Really, like I could somewhat stand Shun being subjected to adaptational whim, but and the Bakugan looking biomechanical, even though the organic ones are so much better. But a dog playing Bakugan, and I'm saying this even the because I find that extremely ridiculous. Okay, I think Bakugan should be played by everyone, regardless of race, disability, gender orientation. I don't care. My Legacy Brawlers were 4 people, and first of all, none of us are Caucasian. 3 of us are actually Asian, and 3 of us are mentally disabled, including myself. I have Asperger's, and I feel like we are an open group. We're welcome to new members and all that. There's no discrimination. But when I saw the show and I saw the dog, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to tolerate this show. I'm gonna try watching a few episodes, but I'm definitely skipping the parts where the dog is just barks.
That's hilarious. That's right. The dog just took the cake for you. You're just like, you know what, man? I can accept a lot and I can deal with a lot. But if you're going to tell me now that a dog is actually in the mix, like look, it's a true thing. I remember there was something, look, you get that. It's amazing. Look, you would probably know better than me, the original, when these guys create these series in Japan and sort of the wacky stuff they come up with. Like they come up with some crazy stuff. And I think sometimes they might almost have too much free reign to try things, because as a viewer, again, you're sitting there, you're watching, you're like, yep, that makes sense. That makes sense. A dog? What? Like it can be a little bit off-putting, right? You're like, I don't understand. I don't get this at all. This is crazy. So yeah, I think sometimes that can be the case where you're just like, no, too much freedom, too much free reign.
And the worst part is, he was the darkest brawler when in all previous iterations of the show, besides New Vestroya, the darkest brawler is usually reserved for the former enemy who forms a face heel turn into, and he becomes an official member of the Brawlers, minus Ace Grit, and I would say to an extension, Spectra.
Right, there you go. That's right. Did you say face heel turn,
I
Jason?
think I think it's like heel face turn. I sometimes
Uh,
I get my mind
no,
my
no,
mind.
no. You're using the wrestling, the wrestling lingo.
Yeah, because I do my research on TV tropes a lot of the times, and they say that face heel turn is when I think a a bad guy turns to the side of good.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, because in wrestling, you know, like if you're the face, right, you're the baby face,
Hmm.
and then if you're the heel, you're the bad guy, right?
Oh, so it's heel
So
face turn. My bad.
yeah, no, 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 no. But I love the fact that you're using the wrestling terms because look, I grew up watching wrestling, and like now I'm like, look, I don't watch WWE anymore because it just wore me down. I'm just like, you know what, man, forget it. I like the new stuff. So I've really been enjoying AEW. So it's so when you're saying I showed you with a failed heel turn, I'm like, uh-oh, well, we got a wrestling fan in here. That's what's up.
No, I'm just I just do a lot of research on TV tropes because I love talking about adaptations, how what doesn't stick to the source material, but what works, what really doesn't work.
Nice.
Um, like you, one of the things I'm known for is I just brand a lot about uh the movie Eternals, okay? Because whenever I watch that movie, I think it's beautifully shot.
Yep.
It's like a Chloe Zhao masterpiece. But then when it comes to the characters, like you'll just hear me rant and rant about it because I think I think the design of Crow looks so bad to me. Because I'm currently reading the Eternals run by Karen Gillian, and they're doing this thing called Axe Judgment. So it's
Right.
like Druid launching an attack on the mutants, and uh, Ajax and Makari are they're trying to they've awoken the Avengers HQ, and the Avengers HQ is now freaking is now reanimated as a celestial and the passing judgment. When I look at Crow from the comics, I'm like, okay, he looks ugly, he looks like a troll, but okay, that's Crow. But then when I look at the movie, I'm like, that's not Crow. That's a freaking that's a Decepticon from the Michael Bay films.
Right? Yeah, they mix everything. It's everything gets into everything, right? You're like, you get used to one thing and you're like, well, where'd this come from? Like, what are they doing? That's hilarious. Good on you, Jason. You got a good eye, bro.
Thank you. So going back to Ingram, did you work with Zach Bennett to maybe flesh out Shun's relationship with Ingram?
No, you know what? When we're doing the dubbing, we basically got our director, we got our engineer, and then it's me. So any creative decisions or that get made beforehand, they knock their stuff off. But then when it comes from performer to performer, that's sort of one of the skills that you have to have, right? There's a lot of times you don't get to hear another performer's performance. So you don't get to hear what other guys are saying or how they're saying stuff. So you've got to know the script and you've got to know your character so that you know, okay, I'm going to be pretty upset here. So let me play it that way. Okay, this is where I'm going to be a little more empathetic. So, you know, I'm going to play it that way. And that's where, you know, your director will really help you, you know, to sort of, because maybe they already heard the performance. So they'll say, okay, look, you know, they did it this way. So, you know, maybe try to be a little bit more angry, aggressive, sad, you know, unhinged. You know, the director plays a big part when you're dubbing the show to let you know what may have happened. Right. Again, on an original series, you know, like Rescue Heroes, for example, we would record ensemble. So you'd have everybody there, right? You know, Martin was there playing Jake Justice, and Thing was there playing Billy Blazes, and Lenore was there playing Aerial Flyer. So everybody's there, right? Which was amazing because then you can play off of each other's jokes or moods or whatever they decide to throw into the character, right? Which is great. But when you're dubbing, and when we were dubbing Bakugan, you're literally like, okay, your session's from 9:30 till 10:15. So you go in, knock off your lines, and then the directors will sort of direct you to, say, how you're going to be feeling or how you're going to be portraying the character, right? Now, the good thing is that we do get the entire script, so you can read it, so you can get a feel for what's happening. But when you're in there, it's like, you're basically on an island. It's you and the director, and that's it. So, when you watch the finished product and, it sounds like we're all reacting to each other, that's awesome. And that's part of the great teamwork behind, putting together, a program like this, right? Because you've got performers, you've got editors, you've got directors, you got producers that are figuring things out. So, we might even do 5 or 6 different takes of a particular line just to be able to tweak and to make sure that, we get the right sounding feel to a previous line or maybe to a following line. So, there's a lot of work in there, but totally team effort. So, unfortunately, you don't get to hear what everybody else is doing. You just kind of go full bore and hope you're nailing it.
Yeah, I really like because I thought it was a cool dynamic for Sean and Master Ingram to have, but I didn't know that. And speaking of the whole dubbing process, when I spoke to Gary, he talked to me about dubbing the Transformers Unicron trilogy, and he said he was a huge fan of that because it was dubbing, and I can see why based on what you told me. And I remember reading some trivia in Beast Wars. There was an episode where Megatron just suddenly coughed, and I believe it was the producers who heard David K coughing, so they just threw in a scene where Megatron was coughing, and then added Inferno's surprised reaction, like, "What the hell's going on? What the hell is wrong with the royalty?"
That's right. Yeah, that's the great thing about. Look, it's a great thing about animation. You can take anything and do something with it, right? I mean, it's so cool that they can take somebody's cough and say, "Hey, let's work that in," right? Like, that's going to be, really great. And also too, when you're deciding like how you're going to play something or what you want to do, like there's just so many fun things that you can sort of throw in and be like, yeah, you know what? I think that works. I think I'm going to try it that way. Or I'm going to, I'll throw a cough in there, or I'm going to, say a line a certain way and just see where it goes. Right. And, because sometimes, like they'll, when you're making the decisions, look, for me, with a lot of the characters that I've done, especially in dubbing, and especially with anime, because they were old shows that I used to watch, say in like, in the 70s and 80s, and I love the way they were performed. So I would put stuff in to what I'm doing today that I might have heard from, like, say 30 years ago, right? Yep. There's ways even just to, I always remember back in the some of the stuff that I grew up watching, even when there was a show called that was dubbed as Orion's Quest, but it was Grandizer. And I remember there was a series of shows where it was the way they would say, they used the weapon. So they would sit there, Slim Sickle, Omicron Beam. And the way they would announce the weapon they were using, that I loved. So when I started doing anime, I would do the same thing whenever I got to do a character. I mean, I'm trying to think now, in Battle Brawlers, there wasn't a whole lot of announcing of weapons. It was just like, because, somebody else is saying what you're going to use. So a lot of your stuff is reactions where you're just like, But I remember for shows like Metabots, where I would deliver the lines, like I've had my rocket launch, and I would say it just the same way that they would do it, right? And missile launch is, so using stuff. It's a great thing. I know I'm rambling now, but there's so much great stuff that you can do, that you can put in, that if it tickles you and you like it, it's like, all right, man, I'm going to use it and I'm going to put it in here. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So for some reason it says on my timer I only have like 7 minutes left. What I can do is I'll just because apparently I didn't upgrade to Pro, but what we'll do is I'll just resend you a link immediately afterwards, and then we'll continue from where we left off, because I don't know what's wrong with Zoom.
Oh yeah, I know. Sometimes these things, they can just they cut off a little early or whatever, right? Well, I'll tell you what, if you want, why don't you do you want to get off now and fire it up now, and then that way you'll have a fresh one going?
Sure, I'll stop the recording now, and then I'll immediately, um, you know, and I'll send you the link. You have Facebook, right?
Yep, I got Facebook. I've also got if you want to, because I've got my email open. So if you want to, do you want to email me the link?
Yeah, I'll send you the link right now. I'll just stop the recording now, and then I'll send you the link. Come on.
All